Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UE's horizon, watching the stars through the main window. His hand shook slightly as he gripped the metal rail. After 6 months of traveling through space, they had finally found what they were looking for. The first alien ships humanity had ever seen hung in the darkness ahead of them. The alien vessels looked like giant crystals floating in space. They sparkled with blue and white lights that pulsed like heartbeats. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. Everyone knew this moment would change everything for the human race. "Captain, they're sending us a message," said Lieutenant Amy Sullivan from her position at the communications desk. Her voice was tight with excitement and fear. "It's coming through clearly. They're speaking English somehow." Jake nodded and straightened his uniform. "Put it on the main screen." The front window changed to show the face of an alien being. It had smooth, pale skin that seemed to glow from within. Its eyes were large and silver, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like music. "Greetings, children of Earth. We are the Zephyrians. We have been waiting for you to reach the stars." Ambassador Lisa Harper stepped forward. She was the best diplomat Earth had ever produced, and she had trained her whole life for this moment. "We come in peace," she said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the situation. "Humanity is honored to meet you." The alien smiled, showing teeth that looked like tiny diamonds. "We know of your species. You have shown great promise. We would like to invite you to our world so we can learn from each other." Jake felt a surge of pride. After centuries of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, they had not only found other intelligent life, but had been invited to make contact. This was better than anyone had dared to hope. Dr. Richard Kane, the mission's chief scientist, stepped up beside Lisa. He was a thin man with gray hair, who had spent 40 years studying the possibility of alien life. "We would be grateful for such an opportunity," he said. "We have much to learn." The Zephyrian's smile grew wider. "Follow our ships. We will guide you to Nexus Prime, our capital world. There you will meet our leaders and see wonders beyond your imagination." The journey to Nexus Prime took 3 days. Jake spent most of that time staring at the alien ships that surrounded the horizon. The Zephyrians had assigned 12 vessels to escort them, each one larger and more advanced than anything humans had ever built. The technology gap was enormous, but the aliens seemed friendly and eager to share their knowledge. When they arrived at Nexus Prime, Jake could barely believe what he saw. The planet was covered in cities that looked like they were made of living crystal. Tall spires reached into the sky, connected by bridges that seemed to float without any support. Ships moved through the air between the buildings like schools of fish. "It's incredible," whispered Commander Amy Sullivan, who had been promoted to second in command for the mission. She was a tough woman who had served in 3 wars, but her eyes were wide with wonder as she looked at the alien world. The Zephyrians welcomed the humans with a ceremony that lasted for hours. Thousands of aliens gathered in a great hall made of transparent crystal. They sang songs that made the walls vibrate with beautiful colors. Their leaders, tall beings, wearing robes that shifted like liquid metal, spoke of friendship between the stars and the dawn of a new age. Over the following weeks, the Zephyrians showed the humans incredible things. They demonstrated technology that could create energy from empty space. They showed medical devices that could heal any injury in minutes. They revealed ships that could travel faster than light by folding space itself. Dr. Kane worked day and night with Zephyrian scientists, learning how their technology worked. "This is beyond anything we imagined," he told Jake during one of their evening meetings. "They're offering to share everything with us. Power sources, medical technology, faster than light travel. We could transform human civilization overnight." Commander Sullivan spent her time with the Zephyrian military. They showed her weapons that could destroy planets and shields that could stop any attack. But what impressed her most was their organization. "They've been doing this for thousands of years," she reported. "Their empire spans half the galaxy. They know everything about warfare and peace." Ambassador Harper negotiated the formal alliance between Earth and the Zephyrian Empire. The aliens seemed genuinely interested in helping humanity take its place among the stars. They offered to share their technology, to teach humans about the galaxy, and to protect Earth from any threats that might exist in space. For 3 months, the humans lived on Nexus Prime as honored guests. They learned about alien culture, studied advanced technology, and made friends with beings from other worlds. Jake began to believe that humanity's future among the stars would be bright and peaceful. The betrayal came during what the humans thought was a celebration. The Zephyrians had prepared a great feast to honor the new alliance. The main hall was filled with beings from dozens of different species, all apparently part of the Zephyrian Empire. The food was exotic and delicious, and the entertainment was unlike anything humans had ever experienced. Jake was talking with a Zephyrian leader about plans for Earth's integration into the galactic community when he noticed something wrong. The other species at the celebration were not talking or laughing. They sat quietly, eating their food with blank expressions. Their eyes looked empty, as if something important had been taken from them. "What's wrong with them?" Jake asked, pointing at a table of reptilian beings who sat perfectly still. The Zephyrian leader's smile changed. It became cold and hungry. "They have been processed," he said simply. "Just as you will be." Before Jake could react, the air around him began to shimmer. He felt his strength leaving his body as invisible hands held him in place. Across the hall, he could see his crew members collapsing one by one. Lisa Harper was fighting against 3 Zephyrians, but her movements were becoming slower and weaker. "You see," the Zephyrian leader continued, his musical voice now sounding like a death song, "we are harvesters. We find promising species and consume their life force before they can become threats to us. Your people showed such potential. We simply could not allow you to develop that potential." Jake tried to speak, but his voice would not work. The Zephyrian technology was draining something vital from his body. Around him, the other alien species watched with dead eyes as another civilization was consumed. "Your Earth is already surrounded," the leader said. "Our fleet moved into position while you were our guests. By the time you might have warned them, it will be too late. Humanity will take its place among our collection of trophies." As darkness closed around his vision, Jake Morrison realized that humanity's first contact with alien life was also meant to be their last. The Zephyrians had played their part perfectly, appearing friendly and helpful while preparing to destroy everything humans had ever built. But in his final moments of consciousness, Jake held on to one desperate hope. Some of his crew might escape. Someone might warn Earth. The galaxy was not the peaceful place humanity had dreamed of. It was a hunting ground, and humans had just learned they were the prey. Captain Jake Morrison woke up in darkness. His head pounded like someone had hit him with a hammer. He tried to move, but metal chains held his arms and legs to a cold wall. Around him, he could hear other people breathing hard and moaning in pain. "Jake? Jake? Are you awake?" The voice belonged to Commander Amy Sullivan. She sounded hurt but alive. "I'm here," Jake whispered back. "What happened to us?" "We're in some kind of prison on their ship," Amy said. "I think they're taking us back to Earth with the invasion fleet. Lisa is here too, but she's hurt bad." Jake's heart sank. The Zephyrians had tricked them completely. While the humans thought they were making friends, the aliens were preparing to destroy their home world. "How many of our people are still alive?" "Maybe half the crew," Amy replied. The others didn't make it through whatever they did to us." In the darkness, Jake heard Ambassador Lisa Harper's weak voice. They showed me something before they locked us up. Pictures of other worlds they destroyed. Hundreds of them, Jake. We're not the first species they've done this to. Jake closed his eyes and tried to think. The Zephyrian fleet was probably already on its way to Earth. The people back home had no idea what was coming. They thought the Horizon crew was still making peaceful contact with friendly aliens. Earth's defenses were not ready for an attack. From space, we have to escape, Jake said. We have to warn Earth somehow. How? Amy asked. We're chained up in the middle of their ship. Before Jake could answer, the prison door opened. Light flooded in, making them all squint. A Zephyrian guard walked in, its crystal-like skin glowing with soft blue light. Behind it came the leader who had betrayed them at the feast. "Ah, you're awake," the Zephyrian said in its musical voice. "Good. I want you to be conscious when we arrive at your world. You should see what happens to species that show too much. Promise, you won't get away with this," Jake said, pulling against his chains. "Humans don't give up easily." The alien laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "They all say that. Every species we harvest thinks they're special. But in the end, they all fall the same way." It walked closer to Jake. "Your people are soft. They've never faced a real enemy. They'll surrender within days." "You don't know humans very well," Amy said from across the room. "We've been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know how to survive." "We shall see," the Zephyrian replied. It turned and left, taking the light with it. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. During that time, Jake and his surviving crew members worked on escaping. Amy had managed to loosen one of her chains using a piece of broken metal. Lisa, despite her injuries, used her diplomatic skills to trick the guards into giving them information about the ship's layout. Dr. Richard Kane, who was hurt but alive, figured out how some of the Zephyrian technology worked. "Their systems are based on crystal resonance," he whispered to the others during one of their planning sessions. "If we can create the right frequency, we might be able to disrupt their controls." On the 13th day, they made their move. Amy had worked, her hand free from the loose chain. She waited until the guard came to bring them food, then grabbed the alien's weapon when it got too close. The Zephyrian was surprised by her speed and strength. It had not expected humans to be so physically capable. "Now," Amy shouted. Jake and the others broke free from their weakened chains. Dr. Kane used a device he had built from scraps to send out a sound wave that made the ship's crystal walls crack. The Zephyrian technology started to fail as the resonance spread through the vessel. Fighting their way through the ship was like a nightmare. The Zephyrians were strong and fast, but they were not used to enemies who fought back with such fury. Humans had learned to be violent through centuries of war. The aliens had grown soft from too many easy victories. Jake led his team to the communication center. "We have to send a message to Earth," he said as Amy and the others held off the Zephyrian defenders. "We have to warn them." Lisa, bleeding from her wounds, managed to work the alien communication system. "This is Ambassador Lisa Harper," she said into the transmitter. "Earth Command, do you copy? The aliens are hostile." "Repeat, the aliens are hostile. They're coming to destroy us. You have maybe hours before they arrive." The response came quickly. "Lisa, we thought you were dead. What's happening up there?" "The Zephyrians are not our friends," Jake said, taking over the communicator. "They're predators. They hunt civilizations like us. Their entire fleet is heading for Earth right now." "How many ships?" asked a voice from Earth. Jake looked at Dr. Kane, who had been studying the alien computer systems. "Hundreds," Kane said quietly. "Maybe thousands. They have weapons that can destroy cities from space." "We're sending you the technical data we've learned," Lisa added. It's not much, but it might help. The aliens are not as invincible as they seem. Suddenly, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. They're cutting through the door. Amy warned, "We've got maybe minutes before they break in here." Jake made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "Amy, take the others and get to the escape pods. I'm staying here to make sure the message gets through." "I'm not leaving you," Amy said. "That's an order, Commander," Jake replied. "Earth needs to know everything we've learned. Someone has to survive to tell them how to fight these things." Amy hesitated, then nodded. She understood that Jake was sacrificing himself to save their world. "Come on," she told the others. "Let's go." As his friends escaped, Jake continued transmitting everything they had learned about Zephyrian technology and tactics. He sent details about their weapons, their ships, and most importantly, their weaknesses. The aliens were powerful, but they had grown arrogant from too many easy victories. When the Zephyrians finally broke into the communication center, they found Jake still at the controls. "You're too late," he told them. "Earth knows you're coming now, and humans don't go down without a fight." The alien leader looked at him with something that might have been respect. "You have cost us the advantage of surprise. That was unexpected." "You haven't seen anything yet," Jake said. "Humans are survivors. We've been fighting for our lives since we lived in caves. You just made the biggest mistake of your long lives." As the Zephyrian raised its weapon, Jake Morrison smiled. He had done his job. Earth would be ready. The real war was about to begin, and humanity would not be caught sleeping this time. Commander Amy Sullivan and the other survivors reached Earth 3 days before the Zephyrian fleet arrived. Her escape pod was the only one that made it through. She carried with her all the technical data Jake had died to transmit, and a burning desire for revenge that would drive humanity through the dark years ahead. The age of human innocence was over. The age of human fury was about to begin. General Steve Collins stood in the underground bunker, watching the screens that showed Earth's surface. 3 years had passed since the Zephyrian invasion began. The aliens controlled all the major cities now, but humanity was far from defeated. The humans had learned to fight in ways the aliens never expected. "Sir, we've got another successful raid," reported Lieutenant Colonel Tom Bradley over the radio. His voice crackled with static from the communication scrambler they used to avoid alien detection. "My team hit their supply depot near Chicago. We captured 12 of their transport ships and freed 200 prisoners." Steve smiled grimly. Tom's unit was one of the best. They had learned to move like ghosts through the ruins of human cities, striking fast and disappearing before Zephyrians could respond. "Any casualties?" "3 wounded, none dead," Tom replied. "The enemy had 27 casualties." "We're getting better at this, sir," Steve nodded. The humans were indeed getting better. When the aliens first arrived, Earth's armies tried to fight them in open battle. It had been a disaster. Zephyrian weapons turned tanks into melted metal, and their shields stopped every missile humans fired. Traditional warfare was useless against such advanced technology. But humans had always been good at adapting. They learned to fight from the shadows, to use the aliens' own confidence against them. The Zephyrians expected conquered species to either surrender or die. They had never faced an enemy that refused to give up and kept learning new ways to kill. Dr. Mary Foster walked into the command center, holding a strange device that pulsed with blue light. She was one of Earth's best scientists, and she had spent the last 2 years studying captured Zephyrian technology. "Steve, I think I've figured out how their neural networks work." "What did you find?" Steve asked, turning away from the screens. Mary set the device on the table. "Their entire technology is based on crystalline structures that respond to specific thought patterns. But here's the interesting part. Human brains work differently from theirs. When we try to interface with their systems, we don't just connect to them. We can actually corrupt them. Corrupt them how? Think of it like a computer virus, but biological, Mary explained. Our neural patterns are so different from theirs that when we make contact with their networks, we introduce chaos into their ordered systems. I've been able to crash their ship computers just by thinking at them the right way. Steve felt a surge of excitement. This could be the breakthrough they needed. How many people can you teach to do this? Anyone can learn the basics, Mary said, but some people are naturally better at it. I've been testing volunteers, and about 1 in 10 humans can cause serious damage to Zephyrian systems just by making mental contact. Across the bunker, Commander Sarah Mitchell was planning the next phase of their resistance. She had been a naval officer before the invasion, but now she commanded a fleet of captured alien ships. Her pilots had learned to fly Zephyrian vessels better than their original owners. The asteroid base is almost ready, Sarah reported. We've got 50 captured ships there now, all modified with human weapon systems. The aliens never expected anyone to steal their technology and improve on it. Steve walked over to Sarah's planning table. Maps of the solar system covered the surface, marked with red dots showing Zephyrian positions and blue dots showing human bases. What's your assessment of their current strength? They're spread thin, Sarah said. The Zephyrians expected this to be over quickly. They've got maybe 200 ships in the Earth system, but they're trying to control an entire planet. Every time we hit one of their bases, they have to pull ships from other locations to respond. And our losses? Sarah's expression darkened. Heavy. We've lost about half our population. But the survivors are getting tougher. Every human left alive has learned to fight. Even the children know how to use alien weapons now. It was true. The war had changed humanity in ways no one could have predicted. Before the invasion, most humans lived peaceful lives. Now every person on Earth was a potential soldier. Children, as young as 10, could strip down Zephyrian weapons and rebuild them. Elderly people served as spotters and saboteurs. The entire species had become a military force. Tom Bradley's voice came over the radio again. General, we've got a problem. The aliens are bringing in reinforcements. Big ships, bigger than anything we've seen before. Steve felt his heart sink. How many? 50 vessels, maybe more. They're taking position around Earth's orbit. It looks like they're preparing for a final assault. Mary looked up from her work. Steve, I need more time to develop the neural virus. If they attack now, we might not be able to stop them. How much time do you need? Weeks, maybe months. I'm close to a breakthrough, but I need to test it properly. Steve made a decision that would define the rest of the war. Sarah, how fast can you get our fleet ready for action? We can launch in 6 hours, Sarah replied. But sir, we'll be outnumbered 10 to 1. I know, Steve said. But we're not going to fight them in open space. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to cheat. The plan was desperate but clever. Sarah's fleet would attack the Zephyrian reinforcements while they were still organizing. Meanwhile, Tom's ground teams would launch coordinated strikes on every alien base on Earth. The goal was not to win a decisive victory, but to create so much chaos that the aliens would be forced to delay their final assault. Mary, you'll have your time, Steve said. But you need to be ready to deploy whatever you've got when the moment comes. The battle began at dawn. Sarah's captured alien ships emerged from their hiding places in the asteroid belt, striking at the surprised Zephyrian reinforcements. The aliens had superior numbers and better ships, but the humans fought with desperate courage. They used kamikaze attacks, suicide runs, and every dirty trick they could think of. On Earth's surface, Tom's teams hit 23 alien bases simultaneously. Explosions lit up the sky as human fighters destroyed Zephyrian equipment and freed prisoners. The aliens had never faced such coordinated resistance from a supposedly defeated species. In her laboratory, Mary worked frantically on her neural virus. She could hear the battle raging above ground, and she knew her friends were dying to buy her time. The device in her hands pulsed with energy as she made the final adjustments. "Come on," she whispered. "Work, damn you." The breakthrough came when she realized that human emotions could be weaponized. Fear, anger, love, hate. All the things that made humans different from the coldly logical Zephyrians could be turned into weapons against alien technology. She programmed the virus with pure human fury, the rage of a species fighting for its survival. When she activated the device, every Zephyrian ship in the solar system felt it. Their crystal-based computers began to malfunction as chaotic human thoughts flooded their networks. Ships crashed into each other. Weapons fired randomly. Communication systems failed. The aliens had never experienced anything like it. For the first time since the invasion began, they felt something they had not felt in centuries: fear. The species they had thought was weak and primitive had found a way to turn their greatest strength against them. As Zephyrian ships fell from the sky like burning stars, the surviving humans looked up and realized something had changed. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were winning. The war was far from over, but humanity had taken its first real step toward victory. The aliens were learning that humans were not like their previous victims. They were something new and dangerous, a species that grew stronger with every defeat and learned from every mistake. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when humans got angry. Admiral Kevin Ross stood on the bridge of the battleship Earth's Fury, watching the blue and white planet of Nexus Prime grow larger on the main screen. 5 years had passed since Dr. Mary Foster's norovirus had turned the war around. Now, humanity was bringing the fight to the alien homeworld itself. "Admiral, all ships report ready for the assault," said Captain Nick Turner, the youngest ship commander in the human fleet. At 28, he had already fought in 12 major battles against the Zephyrians. The war had made warriors out of children and legends out of survivors. Kevin nodded. Behind him, the largest human fleet ever assembled moved through space. Like a pack of hunting wolves. 300 captured and rebuilt Zephyrian ships, each one upgraded with human weapons and crewed by veterans who had learned to hate their enemies with perfect clarity. "Colonel Webb, are your people ready?" Kevin asked over the communication system. Colonel Janet Webb's voice came back strong and confident. "Ground assault teams are loaded and waiting, sir. We've been planning this for 2 years. The Zephyrians won't know what hit them." The plan was simple but brutal. Humans had learned that the aliens expected civilized warfare, with rules and mercy for the defeated. But humanity had been pushed beyond such considerations. They were here to end the Zephyrian threat forever, no matter what it took. The first wave of human ships hit the outer defenses of Nexus Prime like a hammer blow. Zephyrian defense platforms exploded in brilliant flashes of light as human weapons tore through their crystal shields. The aliens had never faced an enemy that fought with such focused violence. Captain Turner led his squadron through the orbital battle, his ship dancing between enemy fire with deadly grace. "Remember," he told his crew over the ship's communication system, "these are the beings who plan to wipe out every human who ever lived. No mercy, no prisoners unless they surrender completely." The human crews needed no reminder. Every person in the fleet had lost family and friends to the Zephyrian invasion. They fought not just for victory but for revenge against the species that had tried to harvest humanity like crops. On the planet's surface, Colonel Webb's assault teams landed in the crystal cities like avenging angels. The Zephyrians had built their civilization around beauty and order. They had never imagined that their perfect cities would become battlegrounds, where desperate humans fought with weapons designed to destroy rather than capture. "Push forward," Webb ordered her troops as they advanced through streets lined with buildings that looked like frozen music. "Every block we take is one step closer to ending this war forever." The fighting was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Humans used tactics that horrified the other alien species who watched from a distance. They booby-trapped captured buildings. They used the Zephyrians' own civilians as shields. They showed no mercy to enemies who surrendered and then tried to fight again. Dr. Susan Clark worked frantically in the captured Zephyrian archives, downloading everything she could find about the alien empire. What she discovered made her blood run cold. "Kevin," she called over the radio, "you need to see this." Admiral Ross left the battle to his subordinates and met Susan in the archive chamber. The room was filled with crystalline data storage devices that pulsed with soft light. "What did you find?" Susan's hand shook as she showed him the alien records. "The Zephyrians have been doing this for over 5,000 years. They've destroyed hundreds of civilizations, maybe thousands. Every species that showed promise, every race that might have become a threat, they harvested them all." Kevin stared at the data in shock. The scale of the Zephyrian genocide was beyond anything humans had imagined. "How many?" "I'm still counting, but it looks like they've killed entire species that numbered in the billions. Reptilian races, machine intelligences, energy beings, even other crystal-based life forms like themselves. No one was safe if they showed potential." Kevin felt a cold rage building in his chest. The Zephyrians were not just invaders or conquerors. They were the ultimate predators, consuming promising civilizations to prevent any future threats to their dominance. "Are any of the other species still alive?" "Some," Susan said, her voice filled with hope and excitement. "There are survivor colonies hidden throughout the galaxy. Refugees who escaped the harvests and have been hiding ever since. If we can contact them, we can build an alliance," Kevin finished. "Every species the Zephyrians tried to destroy becomes our ally against them." The battle for Nexus Prime raged for 6 months. The Zephyrians fought desperately to defend their capital world, but they had grown soft during their long dominance. They had forgotten how to fight against enemies who refused to accept defeat. Human troops pushed deeper into their cities, destroying everything that represented Zephyrian power. Major Pete Johnson led the assault on the Planetary Command Center, a massive crystal spire that reached into the clouds. His troops had learned to fight in ways that would have shamed their ancestors, but the war had taught them that survival required abandoning old ideas about honor and fairness. "Sir, we're getting surrender signals from the remaining Zephyrian forces," reported one of Pete's sergeants. Pete looked at the alien commander who knelt before him, its crystal skin dim with defeat. The being that had once belonged to a species that harvested entire civilizations now begged for mercy from the humans it had tried to destroy. "No," Pete said simply. "You don't get to surrender after what you've done." The final fall of Nexus Prime sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Species that had hidden in fear for millennia began to emerge from their hiding places. The news spread faster than light. The Zephyrians had been defeated by a young species that had refused to accept extinction. Admiral Ross stood in the ruins of the Zephyrian throne room, looking at the crystal chair where the alien emperor had once ruled over half the galaxy. Now it was just broken glass and fading light. The war was over, but Kevin knew that humanity's real work was just beginning. Commander Sarah Mitchell brought him reports from across the galaxy. "Kevin, we're getting messages from dozens of species. Everyone wants to know what comes next. The Corvani, the Ethereal Collective, the Nexus Corps, even species we've never heard of, they're all looking to us for leadership." Kevin understood what Sarah was really saying. The galaxy had spent so long under Zephyrian domination that no one remembered how to govern themselves. They were turning to humanity not just as liberators, but as the new rulers of galactic civilization. Set up meetings with all of them, Kevin decided. But make sure they understand, we're not the Zephyrians. We don't harvest civilizations. We protect them. Susan Clark approached with more data from the archives. Kevin, I found something else. The Zephyrians kept detailed records of every species they destroyed. Their entire knowledge base, their technologies, their cultures, it's all here. We could restore entire civilizations from this information. Kevin looked around at his officers and realized that they were no longer just survivors of an alien invasion. They had become the inheritors of galactic civilization. The responsibility was enormous, but humans had proven they could handle challenges that would break other species. Start the restoration projects, he ordered. Every species the Zephyrians destroyed deserves a chance to live again. And make sure word spreads. Humanity keeps its promises. As reports came in from across the galaxy, Kevin Ross understood that the war against the Zephyrians had ended, but the age of human leadership was just beginning. The species that had once fought desperately for survival now faced the challenge of ruling wisely. The galaxy would never be the same. Emperor Jack Morrison stood in the great assembly hall on Earth, looking out at representatives from over 1,000 worlds. 50 years had passed since his father, Captain Jake Morrison, had first met the Zephyrians. The galaxy was a very different place now, and humanity ruled it with wisdom earned through suffering. My fellow beings, Jack said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. Today, we celebrate not just the anniversary of our victory, but the birth of a new kind of galactic civilization. In the front rows sat the leaders of species that had once been thought extinct. The Kovani had rebuilt their homeworld using human technology. The ethereal collective had emerged from their hidden dimensions to join the galactic community. Even the machine intelligence called the Nexus Core had agreed to work with biological species for the first time in 1,000,000 years. Chancellor Betty Turner managed the complex government that kept 1,000 worlds working together. She had learned that ruling the galaxy was harder than conquering it. Different species had different needs, different ideas about justice, and different ways of solving problems. But somehow, they had made it work. The reports from the outer colonies are encouraging, Betty told Jack during their morning meeting. Food production is up 20% this year. Crime rates are at historic lows. Even the Void Walkers in the distant sectors are cooperating with our trade agreements. Jack nodded with satisfaction. The Void Walkers had been the last major test of human leadership. When the ancient warrior species had emerged from the galaxy's edge, many people expected another war. Instead, humanity had offered them something they had never experienced, a chance to be part of something larger than endless conflict. Supreme Commander Gary Collins, grandson of the legendary General Steve Collins, entered the meeting room with urgent news. His face was serious, but not worried. After 50 years of peace, humans had learned the difference between problems and disasters. Jack, our long-range scouts have detected something at the galactic boundary, Gary said. Ships from another galaxy. Big ones. They're sending diplomatic signals. Jack felt his heart rate increase slightly, but he remained calm. This moment had been predicted for years. How many ships? 50 vessels, each one the size of a small moon. But they're not acting hostile. They're requesting permission to meet with our leadership. Jack looked at Betty and Gary, his most trusted advisors. These were the moments that defined civilizations. How humanity handled first contact with another galactic power would determine the future of everyone under their protection. What do we know about them? Jack asked. Dr. Lisa Parker, the galaxy's leading expert on alien cultures, had been studying the signals. They call themselves the Helix Confederation. From what we can understand, they're a union of species from the Andromeda Galaxy. They've been watching our expansion for the last 20 years. Watching us how? Betty asked. Long-range sensors, probe ships, maybe even spies, Lisa replied. They know about our war with the Zephyrians. They know how we've rebuilt galactic civilization. And they seem ... impressed. Jack considered the situation carefully. Humanity had come a long way from the desperate survivors who had fought the Zephyrians in underground tunnels. They now commanded fleets that could travel between stars in days. They had technology that combined the best discoveries of hundreds of species. Most importantly, they had proven they could govern with strength and fairness. Set up the meeting, Jack decided, but make sure they understand the conditions. This is our galaxy. Any agreements will be on our terms. The meeting took place in the neutral space between galaxies, far from any inhabited worlds. Jack traveled there aboard the flagship Humanity's Pride, accompanied by the most powerful fleet humans had ever assembled. He wanted the aliens to understand that while Earth was willing to talk, it was also ready to fight if necessary. The Helix ships were unlike anything humans had seen before. They looked like living creatures made of metal and light, constantly shifting and changing shape. When the alien ambassador came aboard the human flagship, it appeared as a being of pure energy held together by will alone. Greetings, Emperor Morrison, the alien said in perfect English. I am Prime Speaker Xanthus of the Helix Confederation. We have come to meet the species that accomplished the impossible. What do you mean by impossible? Jack asked. You destroyed the Zephyrians, Xanthus replied, its form flickering with what might have been amazement. In our galaxy, we fought them for 10,000 years and barely managed to drive them away. You completely eliminated them in less than a decade. Jack felt a surge of pride, but he kept his expression neutral. We had strong motivation. They tried to wipe out our species. Yes, we know. We also know what you did afterward. You could have become conquerors like the Zephyrians. Instead, you became builders. You restored dead civilizations and created something new. The negotiations lasted for 3 days. The Helix Confederation wanted to establish trade routes between the galaxies. They offered advanced technology and knowledge of distant civilizations. In return, they wanted to learn human methods of government and social organization. Why? Jack asked during one of their private meetings. Your technology is clearly more advanced than ours. What could you possibly learn from us? Synthesis. Energy form pulsed thoughtfully. You have something we lost long ago. The ability to unite different species without destroying what makes them unique. In our galaxy, peace came through dominance. Here, you have created peace through cooperation. Jack realized that humanity had achieved something truly special. They had not just survived the Zephyrian threat or even defeated it. They had used that victory to build something better than what came before. The final agreement was signed in the Great Assembly Hall, with representatives from both galaxies present. Humanity would remain the dominant power in their own galaxy, but they would work with the Helix Confederation as equals in intergalactic affairs. As the ceremony ended, Jack looked out at the assembled beings and remembered his father's sacrifice. Captain Jake Morrison had died believing that humans were just one small species in a vast and dangerous universe. He could never have imagined that his son would one day rule that universe. Commander Amy Sullivan, now an old woman but still sharp as ever, approached Jack after the ceremony. She was one of the few people still alive who remembered the beginning of the war. Your father would be proud, she said simply. I hope so, Jack replied. We've come a long way from that prison ship. Amy smiled. Jack, we didn't just come a long way. We became something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that used its power to make things better instead of worse. That night, Jack stood on his balcony looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships patrolled trade routes that connected 1,000 worlds. Human laws protected species that had been slaves for millennia. Human technology restored civilizations that had been thought lost forever. The galaxy was at peace, and humanity had proven that a species born on a small blue planet could rise to rule the stars. Not through conquest or domination, but through the simple idea that different peoples could work together if someone was strong enough to make them try. The age of human leadership had begun, and the universe would never be the same. The species that had once faced extinction now stood as guardians of galactic civilization, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. As Jack Morrison looked up at the stars, he knew that humanity's greatest adventures were still ahead of them. The galaxy was theirs to protect, and they would not fail in that responsibility.